Escape to the metaverse. Better act like you know. Yeah. You are now tuned into the Matthew and Rizzo show. Yeah. Escape to the metaverse. Better act like you know. Yeah. You are now tuned into the Matthew and Rizzo show. Yeah. Escape to the metaverse. Better act like you know. You are now tuned into the Matthew and Rizzo show. Yeah. Escape to the metaverse. Better act like you know. You are now tuned into the Matthew and Rizzo show. Yeah.
While we wait for Matt to not rug us, took some time off work. There's always more to do.
That sounds great, though. What's main work now?
Avastars. I'm still helping with Token Smart and a bunch of other things, of course.
Yeah, dude, I know how you roll. What's the hot take on Avastars, man? How are things going over there?
3D Avastars coming very soon for everyone.
Woo!
It will be very cool to finally get to use our Avastars in all these metaverses.
Yeah, dude, that's fucking cool.
And Matt is finally here.
Hey, what's up, Matt?
Yeah, what's up, y'all? I didn't rug. F you, Dragonite. I know you did that title, dude.
All right, fair enough. You did your job.
Welcome back, boys and girls, ladies and gents. This is Matthew, aka Nifty Time, back with my dude Rizzle, the hype master of the metaverse, for another episode of the Matthew and Rizzle show. We were just talking about how it seems like the space is still stuck in that funk of degenerate of shitcoin, meme coin casinos, although it looks like the price and market caps of a lot of those things have dropped considerably. At the same time, there's bright spots. Nike just launched their Dot Swoosh project, which is getting a lot of attention. Literally this morning, Axie Infinity just got the Axie game listed on the Apple Store, which is also like mega fucking massive because Apple has been traditionally super anti-crypto, at least how they have approached everyone in the space. So that's a major milestone. And then Rizzle posted the recap video of Rizzlefest, which was a bright spot in the morning as well. So I don't know, dude. Are things turning around? Like starting from today?
I gotta just speak like broadly on the space and everything. It feels like it's sort of a weird time where nobody really knows like what they're doing, and it's like I was actually on like a collector's corner thing earlier in the week with Monoverse, and people were asking questions, and got to talking about how it sort of feels like almost like the space is reset in a way because it's been so dead, at least NFTs wise, for a lot of people.
Everyone's just still stuck in that like stagnant space. I think a lot of people are checking out early for vacation, to be honest.
Right.
Yeah, like summer vacation. I mean, this is always traditionally a down period, right?
Yeah.
But it's just more so now. I think people are just like, whatever, nothing really to see here for the time being. Let's clock out. I guess Nike's coming in with their Swoosh or Dot Swoosh project. Don't really know too much about that. Things are happening.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I'm sus on the Nike Swoosh project. I'm like, we'll play it out, but I feel like everyone always gets excited for these kinds of things, and then they end up being like another sort of like flash in the pan like type of thing. So I don't know, man. It would be like cool to see. We had talked about Starbucks, actually being a one of these like sort of old world like big corporations coming in and doing something semi interesting or like useful with the tech that might actually have some legs. And it would be interesting to see Nike come in and do something similar. But I have like little faith in people coming in from the outside and really being able to get it right, at any point in time, really. But I've been wrong in the past, and I'm interested to see how like any of this stuff plays out, because I feel like there's not a whole lot going on. Dude, I did not know that Axie got listed on the Apple Store, and that is that's massive, man. I don't know like how if you're not like in the fold enough to realize the struggles that have been going on between like crypto and the Apple Store, like for years now. So Axie has actually been like actively involved in that struggle here and there, or maybe throughout. I'm not on the inside, but what is there any more news on that beyond like they just got their thing up there, or that's like a pretty big deal?
I just saw the tweet this morning, like as everyone does, woke up in bed, did a hard refresh on Twitter, and was like, "Whoa, that's massive." So I have no background into that or insight. Maybe we gotta get Jiho on the horn to see what the deal is. See how the rest of the industry can take note. I'm wondering if they made any updates or alterations to the app as well, to make it more appealing or to pass the checks that Apple has.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I was actually just saying this morning to my wife. My son's like playing around with different video games and everything, and I was like, man, what? But once someone really like gets the formula down where there's like a really interesting like blockchain based game, man, my son's gonna be like one of those people. If it like sticks, he's gonna make generational wealth on some like fledgling like really dope game by the time he's like 12 years old or some shit like that. And but like, and we were just talking last week about like it being those types of things being streamlined into a more like palatable, like user-friendly experience that people are like more inclined to tinker around with and adapt to and everything. So that's pretty cool, man. And I've always been a fan of Jiho, and I've always felt like Axie has had their like ups and downs as a project in terms of like their steps and their public spotlight stuff or whatever, but like I've always felt like he's someone that I've always known to build with integrity and like really wants to like do great things with this project and everything. So I'm happy for them to get a victory in that regard and everything. Outside of that, man, I was saying beforehand, that's actually very exciting. But outside of that, I was saying it just seems like there's not a whole lot going on in the sense of like, I don't know. For a long time, it seemed like there's so many people involved in this like period of like rapid experimentation and like rapid growth, and like even during the hype cycle, like that part like never really slowed down or whatever. But now it seems sort of like what you were mentioning earlier is like nothing's really been going on for so long, or like so many projects have hit like a wall in terms of like the combination of like sales going down and royalties getting gutted, that it sort of seems like everyone's sort of checked out on an early vacation, and it's like, I don't know, maybe I'll come back during the next hype cycle and see if things have gotten any better or anything. What's your take, man, on the scope of things?
Yeah, I mean, just piggybacking off of the vacation comment, like over the past few years, like even when we were like quote unquote in the bull where the market was much stronger, like typically end of April, May is when you start to see like a slowdown in sales across the board for the most part, especially into summer. Like a lot of the European collectors, artists, they do the long vacations. I think a lot of other people have started to follow suit. And especially when markets are a little bit slower, not as much happening, like why not go touch grass, grab sand, like hit the waves, right? So I think we're seeing that as well, in addition to like the overall slower market. And it would probably serve people well if they're feeling burnt out, tired, to just check out for a little bit. Go have some fun. Hopefully you have some spoils of the last market tucked away somewhere. Buy something nice for yourself, for your loved ones. So and in a space where it's always on, it's hard for people to really disconnect. But I think the space would benefit from people really just taking their vacations, honestly. And like longer vacations than they probably otherwise would have. So, yeah, that's my 2 cents. Go on fucking vacation, have fun, and come back.
It seems like a lot of people have are following up on that or taking that into consideration, man. I guess, I mean, in terms of the landscape, we were talking last week about, AI getting more incorporated into things and everything. And I do think there's like a lot of that going on. But in terms of like NFTs, man, I'm like curious to hear your thoughts about like where things go from here, because I do feel like, we sort of hit a point in the tech regarding that specifically where like, it seems like we sort of cycled back to meme coins. A lot of big collections are either in like a steady decline or like just straight up deadlock or whatever in terms of like being something that speculators feel like they can invest in and everything. So I feel like that sort of portion of the population is sort of moving on and away from NFTs, at least on broad scopes or whatever. There'll always be some of that. But what in the NFT scene do you feel like will really like sort of bring that hype cycle around, or like refocus the spotlight on NFTs? Because it almost feels like we, not me and you specifically, obviously, but like, the NFT community almost fumbled the ball in a way where we had like the the attention of the entire world on this technology, and it got like convoluted in these like hype cycles and like PFPs and like the lowest common denominator stuff, and now we've sort of like lost that spotlight in a lot of ways, it feels like. But maybe I'm wrong, man, but curious to hear your thoughts on that.
I mean, it's definitely not headline news like it was, right? We're not being talked about on like Saturday Night Live every other weekend. I don't even know if Saturday Night Live's still around. So
that was
of course
a wild time though, right? That was crazy.
I mean, that was absolute madness. But I think you have to zoom out a little bit. Even if like the headline news is different, you're still seeing like what we were just talking about at the beginning, like Nike launching their products, Starbucks still firmly making moves on their end. Red Bull is doing a promotion to help some underprivileged, underserved youths around the world, launching on Nifty Gateway. Just happens to be a fact. And then on top of that, like what NFTs aren't just something specific to like USA or North America. Things are happening around the world. Korea is like the other major hotspot. Big things are happening. And at the same time, like you have these artists, and this has like always been my focus, the art side of things, doing their thing. I think it was just last week, Alpha Centauri Kid had those 48 auctions that grossed about like $1 million. We have like Jack Butcher, another Christie's sale. We have Andrea Bonacetta coming up with an evening sale in a major traditional auction house. Like just very small array of things that are happening that are noteworthy in and of themselves. And I just think we're seeing a little bit of the maturation in the space where it's like, yeah, these things are here. Big players, small individual artists, up and comers, they're all doing their things and using the technology in their way. And the story won't be about the industry by itself. It'll be about the individual bright spots that pop up. And in a market that is down like it is now, it's just easier to stand out. It may not make it to the front page. These standouts in this market may not make it to the front page of the New York Times or whatever. But in the circles that people pay attention to and swim in, they'll definitely be like top line news that people will be talking about and draw attention to. So in my personal opinion, I think we're in a better spot. It's not just like a single adjective project or just a small couple or handful of projects that are leading the way with the headlines. Now we just have like a larger number of really interesting shit happening, in my personal opinion. And that leads me to think that we're in a better spot.
Yeah, that is interesting, man. I'm always curious, like what the actual reach of these projects is beyond, like, sort of the pond that we're swimming in. And we talked about this last week or the week before, or whatever. That sort of bridging new people into this via like easy onboarding systems does a lot for that. But I guess that's sort of like my take on like state of affairs in general right now. It's like all this stuff is interesting and cool. Does it reach like beyond like the current pond that we established during the next hype cycle that's like feels like slowly getting brain drained of like the people who are like in here innovating? There's like so much promise in the space, and now it's sort of been like steady decline or like stopped for a long time. And maybe better than I do, man. And I feel like crypto can sort of obfuscate things because people can set up like alternative wallets and that kind of thing. But I'm interested, like in this period of what to me, maybe I'm off, but what appears like somewhat gridlock in terms of like expanding the space of like onboarding people interested in NFTs, like how many of these like art auctions that are coming off are like actual like new people who are unexposed to the tech and unexposed to this style of collecting, but are like, wow, this is like such a cool new thing? Or are we mostly sort of buying and selling amongst ourselves like it was way back in the day because not very many other people are interested, which is sort of like what it feels like to me. And maybe I'm wrong, man. I don't have like a great I don't keep up with a lot of the the larger name projects and how the sort of their on ramp and onboarding translates into like who gets sort of funneled into the ecosystem here in like a long term way. I don't know, man. I'm just sort of rambling. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the Nike play is potentially interesting. I'm not sure how they're focused on onboarding. I'm not sure how much of what they're doing is fully on chain versus off. If it's more the former, more like fully on chain, I think the impact will be more muted than it could be, just because of like what we talked about last week. All the barriers that are still in place when it comes to doing things like more fully on chain. Although like their marketing and everything that they've put together and that I've seen so far speaks to them trying to reach a new audience. So at least directionally, they're going the right way, at least with marketing. The technical execution and implementation is a different question that I can't really speak to. But even looking at like Axie Infinity, like what they're doing, they've been targeting and growing in a whole different market than most of the folks in circles that we swim in are paying attention to or thinking about, right? Over largely in Southeast Asia, onboarding in that part of the world, which fastest growing part of the world, like technological adoption from day one, like fully like on the internet. Like that's a huge core segment of future users as far as I see that could swim in like the other sectors that are popping up and using NFTs and crypto, right? Yeah, it's really project specific. And you have to like dig in a little bit to see, well, are they just trying to siphon more money out of the existing participants in the space? Or are they really trying to grow the pie by bringing in new users, new blood, new energy, new excitement? It's hard to tell. I think, though, based on like the projects that we're working with over at Nifty and that I've been talking to and we've been talking to, I feel like the focus is definitely on trying to onboard more new users, which is what we need. But you still see a lot of the circle jerky, like cash grabby events that are happening that are just targeting folks that are still in the mix. So I'm still more of like glass half full, but yeah, you always have to dig into the details and see really, really what's happening. And also not just like the details of how they plan to launch and execute and implement things, but like, does it actually translate? Like, does dot swoosh actually bring in real users? Like, what is the end game? How are they going to keep people active and happy and excited in a way that keeps them around for whatever happens next in the space, whether that's like a new hype cycle or we just keep having these like larger number of entrants coming in and creating new experiences and products and things for people to engage with.
Yeah, dude, 100%. Man, I feel like the Axie thing could be like a really big deal, man. If this actually like paves the way for other crypto native projects to get listed on the App Store, that is a huge barrier to I feel like so many. I mean, it seems silly, but it's not. Like one of the biggest gatekeepers is just making this shit familiar to people. And even when we're talking about like dot swoosh and Starbucks and all this shit, man, if like the floodgates get opened for them to be able to integrate this stuff in like something like an app on the Apple Store, like it just does so much. Like, and I'm not even a fan of this like being a thing, but it is what it is, man. And just being able to say you have that does so much to like legitimize your project and make people more inclined to like mess around with it, stumble upon it, like all of these things that like sort of need to be mainstreamed in the public eyes for things to take off. And that's like probably more than anything been one of the biggest barriers for the space in general, is just like getting some of these mainstream content feeders on board to also promote like and embrace like crypto native stuff. I mean, the whole thing with like Steam, you know, they like and I'm not sure, and it's possible that I'm behind on that whole thing, but at least for a long time, they, you know, have not embraced anything crypto native. I know Minecraft like the same way, and so there's always been these like, you know, really obvious like easy ports of entry that people could get onboarded that have been just gate kept the shit out of for so long, including the Apple app stores. So like I would love for this to not be one of those like, man, they managed to get it on, but then like Apple does some digging and bans them like, you know, a week later, some shit like that, and have it actually be some sort of like precedent moving forward that like, you know, gets this stuff in people's hands. There's a lot of predatory games on the App Store that like, you know, are trying to drain your wallet for like shitty upgrades. It'd be cool to have some stuff out there that actually like rewards users and you know, people who are playing these goofy games anyway.
Yeah, you didn't say it directly, but I think like your point, at least the way what I take away from that is we just need more people to actually experiment and try to implement the tech in novel ways, right? The more that happens, the better. We're seeing it continue to happen in a way that I think the people that are not currently experimenting are taking note of finally, just because their peers are. Their peers being like folks like Starbucks and Nike, like the big companies that everyone looks to see what they're doing before they actually make their own moves internally. So because that is happening, I have more confidence, especially than even last year, that we're going in a direction that will really help change things for us and continue to change things for the positive, more or less. So yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, man. And there was definitely a point in time where in no market were any companies that had anything to do with anything mainstream were willing to take a flyer on, you know, doing a project within this sphere and everything. So I think the fact that we're you know, in what would you know, most people would still consider a down market, that you know, there's legit companies out here still, you know, taking stabs at things and trying new things. It's not going to be long before they start figuring out, you know, at least a formula that works for them, or some of them will. And then I'm sure it'll be like, you know, McDonald's the shit out of once someone figures it all out and everything. But I agree, man. And that's sort of what I think we're stuck with, at least in the short term, right? We got these like these big sort of independent companies, maybe independent isn't the right word, but like sort of, you know, big companies, Starbucks or whatever, that can deliver on something that sort of paves the way for someone else big to do something. But something like the App Store, I feel like cuts across a lot of boundaries in terms of, you know, you got a lot of choices what you want to interact with, and just like flicking that switch that says like crypto native shit is like okay here now. Like sends a subconscious message to like a whole lot of people who are sort of like, you know, sitting on the sidelines and everything. And I think like, you know, Starbucks is at least from what I understand, like, you know, going the path of sort of onboarding people in like a slick way that they don't necessarily need to be crypto native or understand crypto to do it, which is dope and needed too. But I do think like, man, if the Apple Store flicks that switch and says like that kind of shit is welcome here, all of a sudden everyone who's like, you know, this is bad, this is not something for me, this is too like, I don't know, like stigma attached to it from like, you know, back in the day or whatever, you know, all of a sudden they can just like tap something that they're like, you know, not scared of in order to interact with it. I'm like, that's some powerful shit if that's like what's coming down the line.
Yeah. And the one thing that we've been seeing around everything that's happened in this space is how actual communities form around them. Like even with Starbucks, like something that is such like a mega consumer focused product, like the folks that have been participating in the Odyssey journey, I mean, they set up their own Discord like by the tens of thousands, and they're in there all day doing their thing, chatting, like shooting the shit, all that stuff that we've seen like growing together because of this weird thing that they've been doing before NFTs, which is like go to Starbucks religiously, get those points and stars and everything for the Starbucks reward program. But now the NFTs kind of just brought them together. Calling them like a proper community maybe is like too early, but like they're doing the same things that everyone else that self-identifies as part of a community have been doing too. And that is a really interesting layer heading forward, especially in a future where AI is going to be super present. AI is changing the game, but like I think Andrew Steinwald said this the other day, you can't fork community. And when you have the NFT layer there, it's almost like an API to external communities in a way that lets people play around and do cool, interesting things. I think Cameron from Cent had the idea of like permissionless partnerships and NFTs, unlocking that with when it comes to specific communities. Like an early example was when Tiffany's came in and they just targeted like the CryptoPunks communities and were like, hey, we have this limited edition like chain, whatever. Only CryptoPunks holders can get this. And they raised like how many, like tens of millions of dollars from that, right? Just by having this like captive community and NFTs being that API access layer and into doing what they ended up doing. So I think we're only scratching the surface on that front as well. And the more experiments are run, the more people will see, oh, that's possible and this is possible now. So
yeah,
exciting
dude,
times, dude.
I mean, it makes perfect sense, man. If you understand what's going on enough and you've got a great cult existing, like Starbucks has like a great existing cult to tap into. I mean, you're absolutely right. They have like yeah, man. They got like rabid Starbucks fans, like, mashing their app and like doing all this shit already anyway. So, you weave an NFT into it. And of course, the cult wants the NFT, especially if you do it in like a cool way that like, enhances the cult or, gives the cult some interesting benefits or whatever. So co-sign on that entirely, man. And I think like we'll probably see more of that model being adopted because I agree with what Andrew Steinwald said as well, man. And I think a lot of people are starting to learn that and tap more into their like existing communities. Dude, I remember one of the first like great examples I saw of that, honestly, was Gary Vee. When I was like working with NFT-42 to launch V-Friends and everything, man. And like Gary V's got a cult, dude. And like they dropped V-Friends on that cult and they love that shit, man. And it like, so I was like, in the Discord to sort of, help. These people weren't like, a lot of them not Web3 native or only had like beginners understanding. So, trying to do some troubleshooting and help out, make sure everyone knows what's going on upon launch and everything. And they just ate it up, dude. And it was fascinating to watch him weave it into his existing community in a way that they seem to love it, man, and regardless of what people say from an outside perspective, like on his project or whatever, he delivered to his community, at least at the time, first several months when I, helped get it off the ground, something that, they really
and then
like.
They have VCon too. I mean, say what you will about VCon, but there's been a lot of people that were like positively impacted by that event, and it's going on again. A lot of connections were formed there. I think that actually ended up like onboarding a lot of new folks into the space too, in conjunction with what you're talking about with what Gary did with like the V-Friends and stuff like that. Yeah, like all of these experiments, even if you're a hater, even if like there were issues with the project, they all on the whole are like a net benefit. Help grow this thing of ours. So it's you got to applaud that, the folks that are taking those risks and building the thing, and at least generating that initial interest, because that's momentum that definitely carries on.
Yeah. Well, also I think it's knowing your audience too, like I think, some of what's going to be the special sauce moving forward is not necessarily like delivering something that is the most innovative or flashy thing that's ever been out there. But especially these companies, projects, people we're talking about who have like existing fans and cults and whatever, like serving up something that speaks to them in a way that like enhances it, similar to some of the examples that we've mentioned that have done a good job of like not maybe necessarily delivering something that like crosses the bounds of like every Web3 enthusiast or NFT collector, but something that does speak to the people that they're trying to speak to, and those are interesting things to see continue to play out over time.
Yeah, 100%. Dude, I feel like each week the conversation just gets a little bit more nuanced. I love this.
Hell yeah, man. It's always a good time, man. Appreciate sort of riffing with you and speaking broad strokes about whatever the hell's going on right now.
Yeah, man. All right, let me want to hit the folks with what they can expect at the whip this week.
Yeah, we got Fractillions and Bay Beckner from Decentraland with a whole bunch of updates. They're involved. I don't even want to spoil it, but we've got a couple different locations we'll be hopping to. Dope giveaway from Fabiano and Patrizia as always. So yeah, definitely come hang out Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern time. Meme Explorers Discord.
Boom, there we go. Awesome, dude.
All right, man.
Catch you in the metaverse. Okay, then.
Sounds good, dude. Later.
Peace.